Imagine living your entire life, never tasting French fries, never seasoning meat, never sprinkling salt on eggs. In fact, imagine not even knowing what salt is, yet for millions of years, that's exactly how every human lived. So here's the mystery. When did humans first discover salt? Was it an accident? Did someone taste a strange white rock? Or did our ancestors survive without adding salt to food at all? The answer is far more surprising than most people realize, because long before salt became one of the world's most valuable commodities, it helped shape migration, trade, warfare, and even the rise of civilizations. But to understand that story, we have to travel back, long before cities, long before farming, to a world where the only source of salt was nature itself. Around 300,000 years ago, early Homo sapiens lived as hunter-gatherers across Africa. Every day was a fight to survive, finding food, avoiding predators, protecting their families. Salt wasn't something they searched for, because they didn't need to. The animals they hunted, the fish they caught, the fruits they gathered, even the roots they dug from the ground, already contained small amounts of sodium. Not much, but enough. For people eating fresh unprocessed food, nature quietly supplied what their bodies required. Unlike us, ancient humans weren't eating bread, cheese, processed meats, or packaged snacks. Their diet looked completely different, and that changed everything. So, for thousands of generations, no one mined salt, no one traded it, no one stored it, because there simply wasn't a reason to, at least, not yet. But here's something fascinating. Salt isn't just a flavor, it's a necessity. Inside your body, every heartbeat, every muscle movement, every nerve signal depends on sodium. Without it, your muscles stop working properly. Your nerves struggle to communicate. Your blood pressure falls. Eventually, life itself becomes impossible. So if humans weren't collecting salt, how did they avoid running out? The answer lies in evolution. Our ancestors evolved in environments where fresh meat, blood, shellfish, and wild plants naturally supplied enough sodium for survival. Their bodies also became incredibly efficient at conserving it. Your kidneys are remarkable recycling machines. When sodium becomes scarce, they hold onto almost every tiny amount. It's one of the reasons humans can survive in environments where salt is surprisingly limited. But evolution had prepared us for scarcity, not abundance, and that difference would eventually transform human history, because one enormous change was about to arrive. Agriculture. Roughly 12,000 years ago, people in different parts of the world began doing something their ancestors rarely did. They stopped moving. Instead of following wild animals, they started planting crops. Villages appeared, then towns, then the first civilizations. But this new way of life created a problem no hunter had ever faced. Grains like wheat and barley contain far less sodium than meat. As diets shifted toward cereals, natural salt intake dropped. For the first time, communities had a real reason to seek additional sources of salt, and that simple need would soon reshape the ancient world. Because salt wasn't just becoming useful, it was becoming valuable. More valuable than almost anyone today can imagine. Once farming became a way of life, people were no longer eating large amounts of wild meat. Instead, their meals became dominated by grains, beans, and vegetables. These foods kept people alive, but they didn't provide much sodium. At the same time, villages were growing into crowded communities. Food had to last through harsh winters, long droughts, and failed harvests. Fresh meat spoiled within days. Fish rotted quickly. Entire food supplies could disappear almost overnight. Then someone discovered something extraordinary. Salt didn't just make food taste better, it could preserve it. When meat was packed in salt, bacteria struggled to grow. Fish could survive long journeys. Food that once lasted days could now last for months. Without realizing it, ancient humans had unlocked one of history's greatest technologies, because preserving food meant surviving famine, and surviving famine meant civilizations could grow larger than ever before. But there was one problem. Salt wasn't everywhere. Unlike water, salt was surprisingly difficult to find. Some communities lived near salty coastlines. Others discovered natural salt springs bubbling from underground. In dry regions, entire lakes evaporated under the sun, leaving behind sparkling white crystals. At first, people probably collected these crystals by hand. Simple, slow, but effective. Later, they learned to boil salty water inside clay pots. As the water disappeared, pure salt remained. Archaeologists have uncovered thousands of these ancient salt-making vessels across Europe, China, and parts of Africa. Some date back nearly 7,000 years. They reveal something remarkable. Salt production wasn't random. It had become an organized industry. Entire communities specialized in producing it. Families passed the knowledge from one generation to the next. For the first time in history, salt was no longer just a natural resource. It had become a human business. And wherever businesses exist, trade soon follows. Imagine carrying heavy bags of salt across scorching deserts, through freezing mountains, or along dangerous rivers. Ancient merchants did exactly that. Long before modern highways, salt traveled thousands of kilometers. Some communities had plenty, others had almost none. This imbalance created one of humanity's earliest trading networks. People exchanged salt for grain, for pottery, for metal tools, for animal skins, even for precious stones. Entire roads were built around this simple mineral. Some of Europe's oldest trade routes existed primarily because of salt. Across the Sahara Desert, camel caravans transported enormous slabs of salt between distant kingdoms. For many people, salt wasn't just seasoning, it was currency. It represented survival, and wherever something becomes valuable, power follows. As kingdoms expanded, rulers quickly realized something. Whoever controlled salt controlled people. Governments began taxing it. Some kingdoms claimed ownership over every salt mine within their borders. Others placed soldiers along trade routes, collecting payment from every merchant who passed. Salt became one of the most reliable sources of wealth. In some places, it was literally worth its weight in silver. Wars were fought over access to salt deposits. Cities became rich because they sat beside salt mines. Empires rose, not because they had more gold, but because they controlled something every person needed every single day. Yet despite all this power, the biggest surprise about salt isn't its value. It's the incredible way evolution prepared us to crave it. And that instinct still controls us today. More than we realize. Here's where the story becomes personal. Even though thousands of years have passed, your body still behaves like it belongs to a hunter-gatherer. For most of human history, salt was incredibly difficult to find. Some days, our ancestors probably consumed only tiny amounts. Natural selection rewarded people who craved salt whenever they found it. Those individuals were more likely to survive, especially in hot climates where sweating caused the body to lose sodium, generation after generation. That craving became deeply wired into the human brain. Fast forward to today, and that same instinct still exists. The difference is salt is no longer rare, it's everywhere. From bread to sauces to chips to foods that don't even taste salty. The survival mechanism that once protected us now encourages us to eat far more salt than our bodies actually need. It's one of evolution's greatest mismatches, a brain designed for scarcity, living in a world of abundance. When historians talk about civilization, they usually mention agriculture, writing, or metal tools, but hidden behind every one of those achievements was salt. Without it, communities struggled to preserve food. Long distance travel became much harder. Large armies couldn't stay supplied. Growing cities faced greater risks during harsh winters or poor harvests. Salt quietly supported every stage of civilization. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't rare like gold, but it was essential. Entire cities grew around salt mines. Trade routes stretched across continents. Kingdoms became wealthy by controlling production. Even today, many famous cities owe part of their history to nearby salt deposits. A simple white crystal helped shape the map of the ancient world, and most people never realize it. Now we can finally answer the question, when did ancient humans first start eating salt? The answer is, they always did. From the very beginning, humans naturally consumed salt through meat, fish, plants, and drinking water, but deliberately collecting, producing, trading, and adding extra salt to food appears much later. As farming spread and civilizations grew, people began seeking salt intentionally. Archaeological evidence shows organized salt production by at least 7,000 years ago, with different regions developing their own techniques over time. In other words, humans didn't suddenly discover salt. They discovered its incredible value. That single realization changed history. The next time you sprinkle a little salt onto your food, remember, you're using something that ancient kingdoms fought wars to control, something merchants carried across deserts, something that preserved food, built trade routes, and helped civilizations survive, all from tiny white crystals. That most of us never think about. History isn't only written by kings or battles. Sometimes it's written by the simplest things we use every single day. Because without salt, the world we know today might never have existed. If you enjoyed discovering the hidden history behind everyday things, subscribe for more stories about the surprising inventions, discoveries, and moments that shaped humanity. Because sometimes the smallest questions reveal the biggest stories. Thanks for watching.